Hello, everybody. We're back with international rugby, and as is tradition, a tradition happening one time, we're going to do a power ranking show before the tournament and see where we land. Now, for those of you with good memories, you'll remember this guy predicted South Africa to be top of the list in the power rankings. So, it says a lot about me. However, I also did pick England really low, and I think I put Ireland second. Doesn't matter. This is the Six Nations. We're going to do another power rankings. The style of this is going to be a bit different. Instead of kind of going through each of the teams and talking about them like we would talk them and put them in separate orders, like before I put them in like the bad group and then the good group and then the elite group. We're not going to do that because obviously we've only got 6 teams. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go in numerical. That doesn't make any sense. Power ranking order from bottom to top. Kind of like a reveal show. And in each of those, there's going to be a few bullet points that I'm going to talk through as to why that team is positioned where it is within the power rankings. So, without further ado, let me present to you power rankings. Okay, without further ado, welcome to the Rugby Illuminati officially, not fiscal, 2024 Six Nations Rugby Union Power Rankings.
Hey, do you want to feel so
informed?
Try Power
Rankings.
Energy drinks for people who need gratuitous amounts of
Analysis.
Yes, we're here with the power rankings. Obviously, there's 6 teams. Let's just go from the bottom and start from there. I think this one's an obvious one. Italy, my God. I mean, they are basically the wooden spoon competitor every single year, and it just gets a shame that we really see some small improvements and small bottoms. It kind of just evens out like Bitcoin, except without the giant rise. It just kind of like middles in the middle like milk. That doesn't make any sense. However, let's go through some of these bullet points with Italy. They finished in the group stages of the World Cup, and they are the only team. I'm just going to check my facts here. There's one other team. They're the only team. They're one of the few teams within the Six Nations that only finished in the group stages. Sorry, Scotland, but Scotland will get their flowers later on. However, finished in the group stages of the World Cup. Yes, they were in a group with France and New Zealand. So, what were the chances of them really going far? Not great. But did they really challenge and look threatening at any point in the tournament whatsoever? The answer is a big fat no. They did not look good. They looked better in the Six Nations beforehand, to be honest with you. So there you go. That's just where I'm at with that bullet point. There's been no real growth in years. There was a few years ago, I remember, I think maybe this is like a long time ago. This is showing my age, where they had maybe like a fly half of promise, or maybe they had a flanker of promise, and now that it's like a winger and a fullback. This guy that has he looks like a young boy but can dance through defenses like nobody's business. There never seems to be the solid rock and then the build to something greater like Scotland's been able to do in recent years. We just feel like we take one step forward, one step back, and we never really go anywhere with Italy. And I don't really see anything changing this year. I think they have an exciting new head coach. I'm just going to check that. He's the same guy who coached Stade Francais. A guy called Gonzalo Quesada, so I've got no idea. He's Argentinian, and Argentinians can play rugby. So maybe this is a turnaround for them. Who knows? I'm really expecting 0 from Italy this tournament. If they manage to win a single game, I will be surprised. And it really questions to me not so much their place in the tournament, but their direction. And the reason that I don't question their place in the tournament is because they've got apparently like a sold out crowd for the England game coming up this weekend. And obviously with me chatting all this shit, what's ultimately going to happen is that Italy will probably win that game against England. So I want to see a little bit of difference from them. I want to see them build an identity. They don't have an identity in my head. The identity just seems like sometimes they're good at counter-attacking and sometimes they look good defensively. But it's never like those two things together, or sometimes they get good at kicking for territory. Like sometimes they just do things well, but they never bind to that as their identity. For me, watching Italy, I just never see something that like is just a solid. This is what they are. This is what they do well. These are their strengths. Sometimes it just changes all the time, and they've shown bits of ability to do various things, but they've never really just shown, their bread and butter. What are they going to do week in, week out? Maybe the difference in me saying that, is maybe scrummaging ability. They've always had a strong pack, a strong front row. But I mean, that's it. You can't build a team over a strong front row. You can build a team over a strong pack. You can build a team over, great set piece in both scrum and line out, but it's not enough. So I want to see a bit more of identity from them in this tournament. What it is at the moment, I've got no idea. Let's have a look at one positive then. The domestic teams are doing pretty good. Benetton, I believe, are second within the league for the URC, which is very impressive. Obviously, a bit of context. Italian players go out of the World Cup earlier than some of the other players in the URC. They get some of their internationals back quicker than other teams, which made them have a bit of an advantage. But I think enough time has now passed by within the URC that if this was the only factor keeping them top of the league or near the top of the league, then they would have been found out and everyone would have started beating them by this point. So they're doing well. Maybe this is a sign for an identity. Maybe some of the players within there are going to come forward and kind of make a home within this Italian team and show some real muster, some zeal. I was going to say zeitgeist, but that's not the right word in any way, shape, or form. Yeah, that's it for Italy. I don't think we need to talk about it too much more. We'll talk more about Italy when Italy gives us something to talk about, you know what I'm saying? So, moving on. Number 5 is Wales. Now, Wales, for me, they had a much better World Cup than I thought they were going to do. But there is a reason they're 5th, and we'll get into that through going through the bullet points here. So, negative. Dan Biggar and Reece Zammit are gone. Dan Biggar is France, playing for Toulon, playing quite well, injured. He's not in the Welsh squad. And he was really, I'd make an argument he was one of the best 10s in the World Cup. The fly halves I would choose over him in terms of performance. Talking performance of the World Cup, I'm not saying as in better player in general. Andre Pollard, Richie Mwanga, Jalabert, Farrell maybe. I don't know. I think I'd pick Dan Biggar's performances over Farrell's in the World Cup. Sexton is better. So he's what? He's in the top 5 for the fly halves for the World Cup. I'm probably missing somebody. Don't care. Still going to go with it. Dan Biggar was in top 5 of the fly halves of the World Cup. He's not in the team anymore, and he's a leadership figure. The other name on that list you got right there, Reece Zammit. Reece Zammit's gone. He's gone to go play in the NFL. I was going to try and make a video about how stupid I think that is. I don't want to be too aggressive. Maybe it was his dream to always play in the NFL, and therefore more power to him. But if it is a knee-jerk reaction that he just doesn't want to be part of rugby and he thinks he can just come back, I think he sadly made a terrible decision for himself. I wanted to make a full video about that and the reasonings for it. I'm an NFL fan myself. Basically, if I never get a chance to make a video, just know that Reece Zammit going over on this international player program basically is committing 2.5 years at a minimum of his career to go and play in the NFL. And at that point, the teams either decide to keep him or they chuck him. If that's 2.5 years, that he's going to be roughly 25, 26, having played no rugby. I think he's 22 actually, so maybe he's more like 24, 25. But that's like a quarter of his rugby career just down the drain. And then he's got to try and go into a team that's either in France or somewhere, or England or Wales, that has probably got some new young stars coming in. He's going to be rusty. Christian Wade is not half the player that Reece Zammit is. Still very good player. And I bet you don't know that he plays for Racing 92 unless you're French and you're a fan of Racing 92. Christian Wade did the same thing, went over to the practice squad, and now we never see him anymore. And I just fear for Reece Zammit that he'll go a similar way with that. Again, that's something for another video. The main point to gain from this, Reece Zammit is pretty much their best player in terms of attack. He's gone. I don't know too many of the Welsh guys coming in that will be coming in to replace him, but it's a huge loss. And these are the two of the players that really helped Wales get into that quarterfinal where they did have a good game against Argentina. And without them, there's a lot of question marks in the squad. Spent a lot on this bullet point. Let's move on. There's a lack of experience. Dan Bigger is gone. I remember looking through the squad lists and the amount of caps that are in there. There's a lot of single digits in there. Who's going to take the leadership roles when it's most needed? Sure, there'll be players in there like George North that will have a lot of experience that they can bring to the table, be a leadership figure. But there's not a lot. And that's a big factor. And I think probably I'm going to put a list here of the list I was looking at in terms of the caps for the players and the squad that they've picked. It's not a lot. So, there's a lot of pressure on a lot of really young guys. So when that happens and you've got some real kind of big level teams coming up in the next four, it's a recipe for disaster in my eyes. But on the other side, this could be a positive. How am I spinning this? My personal opinion is this could work in their benefit because if you haven't had experience, it's possible that you don't have bad experiences. Do you get what I mean? That you're not tarnished, that you're not brazen, that you're not jaded over international rugby, that you don't feel like you're on the losing team all the time. You're coming in fresh as a daisy, young, no idea, young, dumb, and full of care for your country. It really is. It can be used to an advantage. You can play carefree. There's no expectations for your team, which is the bullet point that I thought I was clicking on there, but we've gone for another bullet point here. So I'll just finish this point there. Lack of experience could be an advantage for Wales. It could really do well for them. And there's some there are some great players within there. Jack Morgan, for example, for me, one of my favourites to watch during the World Cup. I mean, really great seven in both attack and defence. And that's rare. They've got some great players. Next bullet point, one of the best coaches. Warren Gatland, in my eyes, you might disagree. You're probably an idiot if you do. He's probably one of the best coaches coaching in the world at the moment. And you would hope the challenge of having a bunch of young guys to play rugby with and coach up and train, he's probably pretty invigorated by it. And it's a fresh challenge. And if anyone's going to do a good job of it, then it's probably going to be Warren Gatland. I'll put it this way, okay? Let me think of something here. Let's say Wales also got rid of Warren Gatland, or more likely he decided to leave because they wouldn't have fired him after that World Cup. He did a great job. Let's say Warren Gatland decides to leave at the end of the World Cup, and they bring in. Let's go for someone who's promising, but no international experience. Ronan O'Gara. How would you feel? You'd feel probably a little less confident, even with how good Ronan O'Gara has done at La Rochelle. It's a lot of pressure to put on a new coach with a country that's having a lot of financial difficulties, players leaving, a lot of turnover. At least you've got this stalwart in the middle of Warren Gatland that has been there forever, loves the team, loves the job, and is one of the best coaches in the world. Circling back to what I was talking about before, the final positive point to talk about Wales, there are zero expectations, much like they had in the World Cup. And this really played to their advantage. I think a lot of people thought with all the retirements going into the World Cup, all of the financial difficulties, there were so many players that just decided, I'm out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. I'm gone. This is not for me. That no one really expected anything from Wales in the World Cup. And they really turned up and performed, in my eyes, with what they had. Very much the same situation that we got in the Six Nations. Even more like doubled down considering the players that have left and what they really have as a resource. Welsh rugby's not doing so great. In the URC, the Welsh teams are pretty bang average, not doing amazingly. I think the one exception maybe is Ospreys, who are okay. But when you don't have any expectations, it is a freeing experience. And this feels like something that people just throw around in sports that doesn't really have any context, and it's trying to send in a way like, oh, well, I played the game, and, I know what it means to... Let me put it in a context that you understand, okay? Let's say you have a presentation or something. No, you don't have a presentation. Let's say your boss says, "Listen, Joe, your name's Joe for the context of this conversation. I f***ed up. I haven't found somebody to do like this presentation. It's low risk. If you f*** it up, it's with a client that understands us and they know us very well, and they're fine with it. They're a very friendly bunch. There's zero expectation for you. Go prepare for a week for this. Don't do anything. Just do a week for preparing for this. Just come up with the best you can. Whatever you do is the best thing you do." How much more freeing is that than the opposite of, "Listen, Joe, you've been preparing for this for a long time. We've got this brand new client coming in. It's all on you. You've got the experience to do it. You've presented 3 times already and gotten the sale, but we need this sale. This is the big one." Think about the level of pressure on yourself between those two situations. The first situation is very much like, man, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to go and do whatever the fuck I want. I'm going to do the best job I can. No one's here to define to me what the best job is. And the second option is very much like, holy fuck, I've done it before. However, now I have to do it. It's a whole different ballgame in terms of expectation. So that's just what my feeling is on the subject. Don't know why I'm doing this. I'm trying to telepathically talk to you through the microphone and the headset. Anyway, that's Wales. Spent a lot of time on Wales. Let's move on. Number 4. Yes, I'm possibly underselling my own country once again, but it's an evidence-based selection, and we're going to go through why. Okay. First of all, first bullet point here. No Owen Farrell. I know I just dissed Owen Farrell for his World Cup performance compared to other fly halves. However, I think there's a lot of things around Owen Farrell that people don't talk about. His leadership qualities, his personality. I think he gets a lot of crap for talking to the referee during the games. But I think personally, I think he takes a lot of the heat off of the team and puts it on himself, takes the responsibility. He's great with the media as well. I mean, all the press conferences that he had with Borthwick after games, really held himself like a professional. Never decided to take it as an opportunity when England started having the performances to kind of be like, "Showed you dickhead." He never did any of that shit. Basically just said, "We expect more, we're going to do more, we'll do more of this." And to replace that figurehead within the England camp, I think this is going to be the Six Nations or the first international games where all the talking heads have talked up to this point in the English media. If you don't live in England, here's a bit of context. All the English media basically hates Owen Farrell. All of Reddit hates Owen Farrell. All of YouTube hates Owen Farrell. Nobody likes Owen Farrell except from the Rugby Illuminati. And I think this is going to be a Six Nations where we all start to realise why we miss Owen Farrell. I already think that we're going to miss him, and there's no doubt in my mind we're going to lose games because of him. I think defensively we'll look a little bit more lost without him. Organisationally, I think there's a big challenge on Borthwick's head and shoulders, to get good performances without Owen Farrell there. So that is a big thing. It's keeping it in the fly half camp. George Ford, who was the obvious step in for Owen Farrell, has had an injury, and the details I couldn't find any specific details in terms of the injury. I know Sale have sat him purposely so that he can stay for the Six Nations, so that he can be chosen, but it's not good. I feel like he was the obvious fill-in for Farrell, has been playing very well. The other options are obviously Marcus Smith, who's had experience in that 10 shirt, but never really taken off playing 10 for England. I much prefer him playing fullback for a lot of the games, to be honest with you. The other options you have are Finn Smith that's in the camp, who looks really good, however, 0 caps. So you've got someone very inexperienced stepping in there. George Ford looked like the obvious heir apparent, and his injury might mean more because I just haven't heard much about it. Typically, I would have thought in sports, if you're not hearing from injuries that happen and the details of them, it's probably because they're worse than you think they are. You know what I mean? Someone sprains a finger. He sprained a finger. He'll be back next week. No big deal. Someone says he injured his hamstring. How long is he going to be out for? He should be back for the Six Nations. I feel like we're trying to muddy the waters. We're not really sure. We're not being told the full details. It's worrying for a guy, for me, for a guy, for me, guy, for this guy, because I thought he was basically going to be at least a nice shoe-in at the fly half position, and that was something that we didn't have to worry about. Now we're having to probably pick a fly half that we're not 100% sure about. At least England have, fingers crossed, a nice landing into the tournament with Italy, but it's in Italy. There's a huge crowd going. Things could go pear-shaped very, very quickly for a fly half with very little experience. Okay, so a bit more to add to this. Oh, I'm in different clothes. What's going on? I recorded a video yesterday on a Tuesday. It's now Wednesday. I've looked at the news. News has come out. Marcus Smith is now injured, and George Ford will be playing on Saturday. Saturday? It is on Saturday. So this bullet point's kind of just like flip reverse it a little bit. Still worried about George Ford. Not 100% sure if he's going to be 100%. But it could be a situation if George Ford gets injured on Saturday that we end up having, we being England, end up having one fly half that's healthy and with 0 caps. So this could be massive. It could be huge. Has implications as well for the rest of the team. Marcus Smith, I would have loved to have seen start at fullback for the Italy game. Obviously, he's now injured with the calf injury as well. So real interesting to see how this develops. A positive, there are some exciting young players. I've done a video about Henry Slade, who's not an exciting young player. He's an exciting old player. He's also back. That's cool. But there are some exciting young players. Henry Slade plays with Faye Waboso, who I think could be the find of the tournament. And I don't say that lightly. Because for me, everyone was like coming in their pants about Harry Arndell. Oh, Harry Arndell, he's so fucking good. He just runs through everybody. He's got legs like tree trunks. But the reality for me is that I always have my reservations about him. And you can see that in some of the play with Racing 92. Yes, attacking wise, he's brilliant. But defensively, he kind of just in some challenges. Not to say he doesn't put tackles in all the time. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he's not the complete player. Faye Waboso, for me, he can glide through defenders, dude, and he goes searching for the ball. He comes in from the inside channel, from the outside, and then defensively, he's always in the right position, and he puts in like as much as a big tackle as like an 8 or a 6 does. There was a lot of toing and froing as whether he was going to play for Wales, going to play for England. Comes into the England camp. This kid needs to start. He's good to go. He's raw. Get him on the pitch. I don't feel like he's going to make the same mistakes. I mean, again, touch wood, because that's obviously, I'm saying he's not going to make mistakes. What happens on his debut, he'll probably like get a red card within 3 minutes. However, I think he's a very, very interesting looking centres. Ollie Lawrence has now apparently picked up an injury, so someone's going to have to come in and fill in there. I hope Henry Slade starts at 13. As I talked about fly half, yes, there's inexperience, but there's opportunity there. Maybe Marcus Smith. I mean, Marcus Smith has been playing out of his mind for Harlequins. Maybe he gets the 10 shirt and he's sensational for England now. Finn Smith, as I talked about, very young player, very good, very young player, very good player. I think we've got scrum half coming in as well. That's not that experienced. In the pack, I mean, I made the joke in the previous video with Henry Slade. Paw Patrol, these guys are so young, they've got so much potential. And really, I mean, George Martin not going into the squad, I think, was a bit crazy for me, but I think that was injury related. But there's a lot of talent in there, a huge amount of potential, but there's also potential for it to go wrong. But I mean, it's exciting. It feels like a bit of a turnover in the England squad for me, and it feels good. Last negative that we're going to talk about for England was the World Cup a gimmick? Now, if you got lost up in the media with the talking heads and the dumbasses, and you didn't kind of use your critical brain, England didn't start off so strong in the World Cup. Well, actually, no, they did. They played well against Argentina, and then they had some unconvincing performances up until that point. You could argue that their quarterfinal against Fiji was also unconvincing. I think in the second half they played amazing, but the first half they certainly didn't look great. Their semi-final against South Africa, yes, they played well. Okay, I'm not saying they didn't play well, but it almost seemed like they were a bit gimmicky. You know what I'm saying? They didn't really play rugby. They almost beat South Africa by refusing to play rugby. It was all kicking for territory, putting their wingers under pressure in the high ball. They basically forced Manny Libbok off the pitch to put Andre Pollard on to try and save the game for them to play a game that could play the same style that England were playing against them. You know, England were lucky they didn't come up against South Africa, or they didn't come up. No, they did come up against South Africa. England were lucky they didn't come up against Ireland, New Zealand, France in the World Cup. And the reason I'm saying that is because they would have gotten torn apart in like an attacking sense. Like they would have been. I'd even say Scotland, the same deal. They keep kicking it away like that. Those teams would absolutely have punished them, like completely. And I don't have any doubt about it. And that's for me is like, well, Six Nations, you play everybody. And so we're going to find out if this Borthwick style that he's really implementing was just a gimmick that could see them through to the point where they did in the World Cup, or it's for real. And my mind is doubtful. I'm not 100% sure. And with the above points of the two fly halves that you'd want starting for some stability out, it's a lot. But final bit on that is pressure. The English media has gone crazy. England are great, but we're back. The moment that England start looking rocky again, and it could happen within the first 15 minutes of the Italy game. First 15 minutes of the Italy game, if they don't look so good, and then they turn it on, you know there's going to be just news articles about, well, they didn't look good in this. The pressure comes on the moment they stop performing well. They need to not have that pressure. They need to win comfortably for the first 2 or 3 games that they have, and that's not going to be easy. So there's a huge amount of pressure in them. Tell you one last thing I don't have a bullet point on here as well. Jamie George, named as captain, already looks like a great decision. Some of the quotes we've got in the media: we've got to win the English fans back over. We want to make rugby fun again, etc., etc. Great selection. I think he's the right guy for it, and he seems like he's got it under his belt. No drama, nice guy, probably good with the media, doing a good job. So that is a positive. Let's move on. We're spending too time on the Homer team here. Number 3 is Scotland. Obviously, Scotland weren't going to be in the top 2 with what we have in the Six Nations, but they are above England, and there are a few reasons for that. First of all, we will talk about negative. They have an aging squad. They're very win now, okay? A lot of the players are not going to make it to the next World Cup, in my eyes, in terms of age. So the only thing they've really got left to win is a few Six Nations. And, they've got to win now. If they don't win a Six Nations, I think, in the next 2 years, I think you can comfortably say that this Gregor Townsend squad building business has been an almost failure. Like, they've got to win something. So that is not only a pressure thing, it's also a last chance saloon thing. People get desperate. So that is a negative for me for Scotland. They're lacking youngsters coming through. I've seen articles over the last few weeks. Gregor Townsend is struggling to get people to come up through grassroots rugby. Your guys' comments on my last video said that enough to me as well. I googled it. It seems like it's so rough, man. I mean, you're having to go and recruit players from other countries. Obviously, South Africa is the meme at this point for feeding Scotland, and it's sad. I mean, Scotland seems like it would be the perfect country to bring up people playing rugby. It's a sport that requires you to be tough as and there's a lot of flair players in there as well already in the current squad, that if you had some real truck and trailers in there, then they would be world beaters. But it is what it is. So they're not really coming in to like break in some new young talent. You know what you're going to getting with Scotland, and that could be a disadvantage for them. They're not going to take anybody by surprise with what they're doing. But a positive, they have some really important games played at Murrayfield this year. Like, for example, I'm looking at this. Yes, they start with Wales at the Principality Stadium, but that's very winnable. They've got France at Murrayfield. That's huge. They got England at Murrayfield the week after that. So they could win 3 games there straight in a row They've got close to beating France in the World Cup warm-up games. They'll have France at home. France typically don't travel well. Yes, that's been different since the new coaching staff has taken over, but I think it's still a factor. They then play at Italy, which again is very winnable. And then they finally play at the Aviva Stadium, which is obviously very disadvantageous. But you can see from that, the two weaker teams in the tournament, they're playing at their homes, which I think they can win. And then the two tougher games leading up to the final weekend, so their games against England and France, both at home. And then eventually, so they could come into a situation, realistically, where in the last week, they've won 4 of 5, and all they need to beat is Ireland, and then they could win a Grand Slam. Do you really have to squint too hard for that? I don't. I think it's just a distinct possibility considering their schedule, and I think that's a factor. This is the thing. This is what really kind of it's these two factors here, the one I just mentioned and this one, that put Scotland over England for me. There's less questions over the starters than England. Talking through the squad, I'm phrasing the England squad in a way of, well, we've got these guys coming in, they're summoning in, the young guys, blah, blah, blah. No, this is the team for Scotland. These are the guys who are going to start. They've earned their place. They're still playing great for their clubs. Let's fucking go, bro. There's no questions. And that is a bit of a freedom in selection for Gregor Townsend. It means that the guys that are going to be in the first team get the reps. Yeah. And on to my final bullet point here. You noticed that I was talking about top fly halves in the World Cup before. Finn Russell wasn't in that, and that was on purpose, because Finn Russell was complete and utter dog shit in the World Cup. However, he's moved to Bath, and for those watching him, dude, this guy can play. I mean, he's been sensational playing for Bath. He's taken Bath from basically middle-of-the-road team. They always had a rivalry with Leicester, and I'm a Leicester fan. They always just seem to be like, we're going to beat Bath this week, it's fine. Finn Russell has come in and made that team a superstar team just by his presence. And I fully expect him to come into the World Cup in the same vein. He's untouchable. He could be the best 10 in the world right now for me, in terms of people playing. I mean, obviously, we don't have the Super Rugby playing. But in terms of what I've been watching over the last few weeks, Finn Russell's the best 10. And I don't think there's really any argument in it. Love to hear if you have an argument about who's a better 10 than Finn Russell right now. I would have a discussion with you. But personally, for me, it's him, and there's no doubt in my mind. Number 2 is Ireland. Bit of a controversial one with this one. I'm going to talk you through the reasons why. For both Ireland, obviously, you can probably work out who's number 1. For those of you with the IQ of a small mouse, I won't ruin the surprise. But Ireland number 2. So let's go through the bullet points here. Sexton is gone. Who drives the Ferrari? So, the way I see Ireland is the fly half is the driver for a supercar, okay? And you need someone in there that can handle the throttle, knows the brakes, can put that baby through its paces, bro. And I think all the fly halves that have come in and stepped in up until this point have proven that they're more suited for maybe like a, I don't know, Audi R, not R8. That's a really good car. like an Audi saloon car. I don't know cars. I don't care. You know what I'm saying? There is something that counteracts this a little bit for me, though. It feels like, since I did my previous video, that there has been a front runner for the fly half for Ireland at the moment, and that's Jack Crowley, who I think has been playing very well. Now, the bit that holds me back and still makes me put this bullet point on this list. Do you remember when Ronan O'Gara and Johnny Sexton, both of them, were like at their separate times, were like coming up? They were like prodigal sons, bro. They were like smashing it at club level, and then they just kind of came into international level and just cruised it. At least that was what my memory was. Jack Crowley doesn't seem like he's had the same pedigree coming in, and I could be wrong. And this could also mean absolutely nothing, and now he comes in and he plays really well. But I don't know, man. I just don't have the same vibe about Jack Crowley that I think Sexton did when he was coming through, or when Ronan O'Gara came through. I'm not feeling the same vibe, but I could be proven very wrong, and in which case this negative turns into a positive. Jack Crowley's the bro. He comes in, he's young, he's got a whole career ahead of him, he's got an amazing team around him, and yeah. Anyway, next bullet point. They have the strongest pack. It's a close second with number one. But they do have. Oh no, number one is a close second to this, but they have the strongest pack, and how they use them is the strongest way. I think from 1 to 8, they're better than any other team here. As I said, the team that's placed number one is a close second in that regard. That's a huge difference. Your pack is your engine. Your pack wins you the 50-50 balls. The pack sets you up on the front foot, and it's a big part of why Ireland are number 2 here, and why I really debated about putting them number 1. I think they arguably have the best centre partnership in the World Cup, in the Six Nations. Bundyaki and Gary Ringrose. Gary Ringrose now obviously captain of Leinster. He's really just gone from strength to strength since the World Cup. His performances have been incredible. Really enjoy watching him. He's a fantastic player to watch. Robbie Henshaw has also been playing very well as well. Wouldn't be surprised if we saw a bit more Robbie Henshaw in this World Cup. But all 3 of those together at some point, you're probably sub 1 in and out. You basically got 3 guys that all could start for any of the other teams, other than maybe France. But yeah, I think they have the best centre partnership in the World Cup, and that's going to go a long way to whoever steps in at 10, presumably Jack Crowley at the fly half shirt. It's going to help him a lot. Okay, context again. Gary Ringrose has been named injured for the... That doesn't make any sense, but I'm going to keep going anyway. You know what I mean. He's injured for the France game. Robbie Henshaw's coming in to fill in the outside centre, and I think this makes a big difference to the team. Gary Ringrose is arguably, in my mind, I think the best 13 in the world at the moment. They're going to really need him to win against France, which I think is such a pivotal game, and it's another reason I think that backs up my positioning in the power rankings of these 2 teams. They have a point to prove. The Irish, they don't take anything lying down. They probably, realistically, weren't happy with how the World Cup ended. They wanted to win it. They put all their chips in for it, and they didn't. And it probably leaves a bitter taste in their mouth. They're not sitting down. And I think emotion plays a big part into how Ireland play. I think they've got a point to prove that they're still top dog, and they're just building for the next World Cup. So look to them to be enraged in this World Cup. Small mention, Matt Hansen is obviously injured. I think that's a huge factor as well. I think they've got a lot of people that they can bring in winger for them, but losing Matt Hansen I think is a big deal. So there is that. I haven't got that as a bullet point, but just something else that I was just thinking about while I'm riffing. That leads us to number 1, France. So, France. A lot of you are saying, but Rugby Illuminati, they don't have Antoine Dupont. Don't give a f***. I'll tell you why. There is no Dupont, but I implore you to watch Le Garrick. Le Garrick has been the bro. He has been the bro. He plays for Racing 92, and I saw him recently in a European competition against an English team, which was Bath. Remembered it right now. He's sensational, and he was named as a player to watch by the commentators. Went back and watched some clips of him. This dude can play. Obviously, he's not Dupont. No one's Dupont. But I think with all the teams who have people leaving, this is the team I'm most sure about the person filling their shoes. Know what I'm saying? Let's go Ireland. Sexton, I'm not so sure. Probably quite confident. Scotland, well, there's no one really filling in. They're all just coming back. England, Owen Farrell, don't really know what's coming to come in. Wales, Dan Bigger and Rhys Zammit, don't know. Italy, who knows who any of their players are anyway. Le Garrick, I think, is going to really take this running. I don't think they'll lose like 0.1 second of a step, right? But he's got a great opportunity here with Dupont sitting out for the Olympics. He should be really good. I'm looking forward to him playing. Context. Le Garrick is not starting against Ireland, which I guess is not the most surprising. Probably the toughest opposition you've got in the tournament. So you're going to go with the more experienced Maxime Lucu, who he's that bold bro who came in and filled in for Dupont during the World Cup. Very serviceable, but please, I want Garrett to start in some other games. I'd love for him to come into the next game that they have. Can't remember off the top of my head after Ireland, or maybe even come on at like 65-minute mark during the Ireland game if things aren't working out. So watch this guy. He's great. Keep your eyes on him. As mentioned in the previous slide, if you haven't worked it out by now, it's France who has the second strongest pack in my eyes. Big deal. Means that I think it makes the games against everyone except from Ireland a lot easier. I really see France having, unless they have a bit of a wobbler when they play away, which is what I've talked about in the Scotland game, I really see France as just being able to mow down everybody else. And they should, unless they have something wobbly that happens, which inevitably always happens. I just see them just mowing everybody down because of this bullet point here. And this is another huge factor. If we look at the schedule, the first game is obviously this Friday. Can't wait for it. See you there. And they're going to be playing Ireland, and they're going to be playing them at home. They're going to be at home, which is a huge deal for France. Number two, they're going to be playing an Ireland team with a new fly half coming into a very hostile environment. I just, you could easily, like for example, like if France and Ireland are playing each other at the end of the tournament, we all know that that's probably what it's going to come down to. But you're playing them at the beginning, which means you can get that game in favourable conditions out the way with, and then just plow through the rest of your opposition going to the end, right? I think that's a huge factor. And I think the chips are stacked for them to win at home convincingly. I say convincingly, probably by like 7 points around that against Ireland. And then you can win the Grand Slam just by beating everybody else, I think that's a real possibility in my eyes, just because of how the schedule's laid out. And very little has changed since the World Cup. All the teams coming back. Dante is my favourite centre. Dude's like a jackal in defence and a powerhouse in attack. They got some really great wingers. Obviously, Thomas Ramos. He's been playing a lot of fly half for Toulouse, but he'll hopefully be playing fullback. I think Jalabert's available. I haven't really been watching Jalabert. Penard, obviously. The huge pack. Antonio. That guy from Toulouse playing at hooker. Bay. Loose head. Like, their team is just so recognisable. Go through all of them. Second rows. And then Barrett Oliver, fucking, what's his name? Greg Aldrit, all the bros. They've got them all. Faku or Fiku or whatever his name is, outside centre. They're all very recognisable. Not a lot has changed. This is the team. And that consistency, considering how soon ago the World Cup was, have a huge impact. Especially in that first game. That first game is really going to set the table for the rest of the tournament, unless one of the other four teams further down the pecking order show us something really special that was unexpected. So that's it. We've been going for a while. Holy crap. This feels like it's been going for 40 minutes. May not be that with the editing. You're now informed. Right there. You're informed. Stay until the end here. Just a quick little bit what I'm going to be doing for the Six Nations. Change some of my schedule around, so I should be able to do some more videos. Hopefully doing a game review of every single game. It won't always be on the day, maybe later on in the week. Hope to do some other like puff PC stuff going through, such as like why is XY happening to Z or blah blah blah. Like I did one for the World Cup for like why did the Northern Hemisphere teams get knocked out, etc. Yeah, kind of having like a mini World Cup intensity into what we're going to be doing over the next few weeks. So that's it for me. We've been going for where's the timer? Got a timer here. Holy crap. Yeah, we're going for about 40 minutes here. So that's it for me. Have fun. Enjoy Friday. I know I will. I'm going to try and get a video out straight away with the game review for that. See you there. Please like and subscribe. Leave a comment. What do you think about my power rankings? Do you think they're bad? Tell me. Do you think they're good? Don't tell me. Actually, no, tell me. I like praise. It's nice. But please enjoy the video wherever you are in the world. And hopefully you enjoy these Six Nations.